Port Richey City Council meeting, Tuesday, January 24th. At this time, I'd like to invite Pastor Ward for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you so much, sir. Lord, you tell us if we'll acknowledge you in all our ways, you'll direct our path. So tonight, Lord, we just acknowledge you, Lord, to help us. Direct us tonight, Lord. We want to thank you again for those you've set here to make these decisions, Lord God, and for our city. And we're asking you for wisdom and understanding. Fill them with the knowledge they need, Lord, to know which is the best for the city. And, Lord, that you would just unite the staff here and the workers with your vision, your provision, and your protection. And, Lord, again, we just ask for your protection for our first responders, Lord, and particularly rest and peace in their homes, Lord, and your goodness to just fill their lives. And, Lord, we just pray that you just put respect in the hearts of those that go to our parks, Lord. I just look at the parks and what they do, and so, Lord, those that use them, I ask that they just honor them, and it bring joy and relaxation, Lord, a time for their families and all those that use them. And, Lord, as we look a year this ahead, planning, Lord, the family things in the park, we just pray that it'd be a peace to unite the families with quality time. We'd be able to help and encourage them. And most of all, Lord, even tonight, we know there's decisions to be made on the fence codes and things looking to the future. So give us wisdom. And, Lord, just most of all, would we know how to honor Jesus that gave himself for us, just to honor us with how to love and help one another to make our city great. And we just thank you for it in Jesus' name.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Scott Tripley.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilman Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilman Bill Colombo.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Duke.
Here. Thank you. At this time, before we have a motion to approve council minutes, I'd like to open for a discussion on that. At the last meeting, I abstained from a vote due to conflict. By Florida statute, I filled out the appropriate documents. Those were not included in the council minutes. So what I was asking this board to do is a motion to include that, so we're in accordance with Florida statutes, and have that attached. So I was looking for a motion to include that document, which is a document that I filled out for the conflict abstaining from the vote.
Motion to include.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now looking for a motion to approve council minutes.
Motion to approve council minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, I wanted to open up commentary from the general public. There were several people that had signed up. The first one that I wanted to call is Pastor Ward. Leonard Ward, welcome. Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Council. It's a little after the fact, but just want to thank y'all again for the Christmas in the park. The fire department did an excellent job gathering gifts, and some of the business people, and the turnout for them, and the police department was just a joy to spend the time with them out there and see the children with the gifts. We had a great time. We really appreciate CMA. They came and they bought the hot dogs and they did the cooking. Then Volunteer Way delivered pallets of drinks and juice and all. So the community just came together from business people and those that with the food pantries and police department, fire department. Just had a great time. It was an exciting time. So just want to thank all of y'all and letting us be a part of it. And of course, we next one will be the Easter egg hunt. That will be the day before Easter, so we encourage families to come out for that. We have the different age groups that we do, and really what we do is show them what Easter's really about. It's a dozen eggs, resurrection eggs, got things in them like the donkey Jesus rode in on before the crucifixion and the nails that went in his hands, some things all through it. And so as they bring those, they get a prize. They're hidden in the egg. So they really know the love of the Lord and what Easter Sunday's really about. Not a fairy tale, but really, really what it's about. So that'll be the next thing we'll be doing. And then, of course, the events through it. And I do just want to thank all of our code enforcement and let us be a part of working over in the Holiday Mobile Home Park. We're still wanting to just build relationships and make it healthier. We got more ideas. So thank you all for allowing Danny to be a part of that and being a chaplain and helping me out. So Lord bless you, and we're just here. If we can help, let us know, and thank you for what you do. And Lord bless you, and I just trust that your New Year's off to a good start. And Lord bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Ward. The next person I'd like to invite up is Mr. Nick Overbeck. Welcome.
Good evening. Nick Overbeck, 7729 Grand Boulevard. I'm here tonight to represent a group of business owners, managers, and representatives, and in that we've met a couple times. We met with Mr. Dute, and we continue to meet, and we are requesting a workshop in reference to waterfront overlay district codes and ordinances. We feel like there's some that could be revisited and possibly revised, and we would like to work together with the city as business owners. And really, the waterfront overlay district is a bunch of businesses that the city needs to succeed, and the businesses would like to grow with the city. And I think that we have not only ideas but some solutions to some things, and there's a lot of stuff in that verbiage that's kind of gone out the window. Some things right off the top of my head are LED lighting. Well, the electrical company's putting in LED lights there. So there's just some things that we'd like to discuss, and we'd like to have some say in the trajectory of the way things are going. And there's a group of about 10 of us that are actively meeting, that we've come up with some suggestions and some ideas that we'd like to be heard. So if you guys would consider a workshop in reference to that, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
That's all that's signed up. I see that there's several people here this evening. By show of hands, would anyone else like to speak? And I see that there's some other folks that have asked to reserve time for later, so we'll get to those at the appropriate times. At this time, we're going to move on to commentary from our city manager. I'll invite Mr. Duke to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Finance Director and I have been meeting with department heads to conduct our quarterly budget reviews. I had an opportunity to meet with Stantec, our contractor that's performing our utility rate studies. They're here this evening to present their findings and recommendations on stormwater, so we're looking forward to hearing from them. I had the opportunity to participate and attend the Pasco County Greenway Trails and Blueway Master Plan Working Group. It's a mouthful. They continue to work on plans for where trails will go in the county, and doing whatever we can to make sure they know Port Richey is on the map as well. Don't have any update information on pier design. The contractor is still on schedule. Spoke with Halfin Associates. They're the contractor working on our resiliency plan. They are ahead of schedule. They have a full asset inventory complete. It's in digital format. They're currently working on flood data. They'll be working on prioritizing potential projects that would go along with the resiliency planning that they're doing. And Sean Lahoff will be here on the 14th of February at our council meeting to give us an update on that project, kind of give us where they're at and where they're going. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Sean. I'm not a dog person, but the dog park has been completely renovated, and I had stopped by to take a look a couple days ago. It is beautiful, and so I want to thank the Public Works team for all the work they've done there. Painted everything, new shell, new sod, did a bunch of repair work. It's going to be closed for a few more days, trying to let the sod get anchored in, get seeded before the dogs return to run on it. But if you haven't had a chance in the daylight, go take a look. It's really nice. Update on the clock. The clock has been repaired. The light repair is not complete. We have to get the contractor has to get a crane to lift up the ironworks, the wrought iron that's on top of the clock, to get to the lighting elements, but the actual clock itself has been repaired. So I'll keep you updated on that. The Chapel and Regis lift station restorations that you approved some time ago, the valves are on both lift stations. City staff is working on replacing the valves right now. As soon as they're done, the contractor will be in to complete the restoration. It'll look like pretty much like the two that we've already restored. So that project is underway. Wanted to introduce our new water plant operator, Sammy Cruz. Mr. Cruz, thanks for being here this evening. We're really excited to have Sammy on staff. He comes to us from 10 years of experience, shall we say, in a neighboring community. I won't say which one, but really happy to have Mr. Cruz on board. Just wanted you to know who he is. So if you want to stop by the water plant, we'll give you a full tour once he figures out where everything is. So don't show up tomorrow.
I want my tour.
Give him a week or two.
What's this valve do? I don't know.
Don't touch anything. That's it. The ARPA Street project, we're in the process of putting the procurement packet together, so that project is moving forward. Richie and Sal and I are working on making a list and prioritizing them for water line replacements. We'll bring that to you when we've got that in what we think is organized form. And we'll have the budget development schedule on the agenda at the next council meeting. I know but as our agenda developed, it started to look pretty robust. So a little triage, and we'll put the budget development schedule on the upcoming city council meeting. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Stand for your questions.
Thank you. I was gonna go around. We'll start with Vice Mayor Strickland-Summers. Do you have anything?
Yeah, one of the questions that I have is, a short while ago, we had Duke Energy came and did a presentation. They've had their contractors within the city, and they caused a few accidents that the city had to pay for. Are we being reimbursed? Have we started any of those processes?
We have accumulated the list, and as those incidents, accidents occurred, as we fixed water leaks that we believe were caused by Duke or their subcontractor, Richie's been keeping a list, not only a list, but how much manpower did we spend? How much did we spend in actual materials, time, truck time? And at the point that Duke tells us they are done improving our city, then we will conclude that list and take it up with Duke and request reimbursement.
Will
So,
we have an opportunity to see that list, Ken?
sure.
I've had a few citizens talk to me about some of the damage that they've occurred in their area. So it'd be nice to make sure that we have everything on that reimbursement.
Very good.
Thank you.
Along those same lines, I know we were doing water lines and such. What about the sidewalks? There are several that look like they've been modified.
From the Duke repair work or?
Again, it's stuff, it's crushing down on the sidewalks. Looks like it was done with heavy equipment, and the only ones who I know really who have had heavy equipment in the area has been Duke, but I don't know if we've had any documentation to such that before or after, or have they done that, or is there anything along those lines, or is it broken sidewalks pretty much it?
I'll find out.
We'll go down to Councilwoman Rodriguez next.
I'll jump on the Duke bandwagon. The roads that they have repaired are not repaired. I mean, they're like sunken. There are pieces falling off even still. They've done a horrible job. That really does need to be addressed. A couple things for the CAC. Just want to give you guys a heads up that we are talking about a citywide garage sale and how that's going to work. We don't have any definite details on that yet. That will come up. We'll bring that up to you guys, but just want to let you know we're working on that. And we are having our first Meet Your Neighbor again, and it's going to be at the Lighthouse Subs at 5:30 on February 8th. Everybody's invited.
What time is that gonna be?
5:30.
5:30?
Yeah, Lighthouse Subs, it's, on Ritchie Road, is that the name of the road? Ritchie Road. In that, little strip mall right by Walmart, so we look forward to seeing you.
Okay, perfect.
And everyone's invited.
Is that all you had?
That's all I have right now.
Fantastic.
Okay, I'm gonna play off of two things that Linda just said. First, if we're gonna have a citywide garage sale, are we gonna waive the garage sale fee?
That's in the discussion in the
I didn't know
future.
if anybody really knew there was a garage sale.
Yeah, it's $2.
Yeah, there's a fee that probably costs us
Yeah, we
more to
do.
process than,
We know.
I know one person that gets it. The other is I agree with Linda, which I was gonna bring up after Tom brought it up. The patches, the road patches in particular, that I've seen Duke do, they've got all the look of a temporary patch. There's a pretty good size one down on Limestone. So we do need to look at those and make sure that those are, anytime you cut into the road and patches, it's never as good as before, but those are not good patches. The other thing I would say is if we're gonna wait for Duke to tell us when this project is over, I'm gonna be dead. The hardening project is by state statute, something goes on for a long period of time. I don't think it's unreasonable for the city to request annual reimbursements at best. Unless they're ready to say, no, we're gonna be done in a month, we'll negotiate that money then. So I would certainly like to see that, go in that direction. I would, Mr. Overbeck mentioned a workshop, relating to the waterfront overlay district. And as you know, an overlay district is an overlay over the existing zoning. Anything that is done related to that is squarely in the purview of the planning and zoning board. I would suggest if we were to start a project about looking at the overlay district, it should go through the P and Z board first. Let them gather information, let them make recommendations, and then it can come before us, and, you know, we can make some decisions if we deem it that we should do it. I would also mention at this point that we have agenda number 9, which is appointment to the MPO Citizen Advisory Committee, which also involves Mr. Overbeck. I would suggest the council moves it to the front of the agenda, since it's a pretty simple item. I don't know how long Mr. Overbeck would like to stick around here today.
Looking for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's it. All right, I wanted to touch on one of the issues that you touched on and that Mr. Overbeck talked about. He's said that they were looking for a workshop, and one of the issues that I have with trying to put together a workshop is the rules are different for our businesses in the waterfront overlay district or Cody River Landing than they are where some of the other businesses or bars and grills are. So I don't know how easy it would be to set up a workshop because you have different rules depending on where you're at or where your business is at. So I think that would be one of the issues for the board that you were talking about to look at to see.
Well, I mean, generally, a workshop is for information gathering only. So, say P and Z holds a meeting just to hear out what they have to say. And then P and Z can hold a meeting and they can discuss it. They can go over it. They can make recommendations. They can go out for more information, suggest more information, suggest more input, and basically step it up to us. That would be my suggestion. But I mean, a workshop's a workshop, and it's right in Jim, as far as I know, that's essentially the purpose of a workshop, is to gather information. You don't make decisions, you don't make recommendations, you just gather information.
Yeah, in a workshop it's a meeting, so it's noticed, and
It's public.
it's a public meeting, and you can't vote on anything. You could say, look, if we go to the regular meeting, we could vote this way, and get consensus. But the most important thing about a workshop is you set the rules for who's going to speak, okay, or who's invited. You can control the actual workshop in any fashion you want. But you're correct. You could have the workshop at any time, before a P&Z meeting, after, whatever you want.
I do agree. I think a workshop's a good place to start. You know, let folks put their ideas on the table.
Okay. The other issue that I had came from a citizen/business concern. So I'll just put it out there because I didn't really have an answer or know anything about it. I was contacted by a couple different folks that asked me, number one, well, let me back up and talk about how this plays in. I know that a couple weeks ago, we agreed to, probably 4 weeks ago, we agreed on the dais by consensus to put, I think it was defense discussion on, and then it just simply wasn't on the next meeting. It was completely left off. And I think that concern was raised by Councilwoman Rodriguez at the time, and then we eventually got it back on. One of the concerns that I have mirrors that same issue. I know that as by consensus, we were talking about putting the property on for discussion with heirs to talk about developing the property. And then when I looked at the discussion item, it was to sell the property, which is not what we agreed on or what we talked about. So I was concerned that things are being put on the agenda that aren't what we've agreed to put on there and what we've asked management to do. The concern that I received from citizens, and one of the business owners in particular, has to do with that in the sense that I was asked, why we've agreed to sell the property to a brewery, and that there was a brewery going in there, and that's what I knew about it, and I didn't know anything about it. I don't think we've ever talked about that on the dais. The person that asked me said that they've watched the meetings and never seen it. And I didn't know if anyone knows anything about, why there's this, I guess, rumor that we have agreed to sell the property to a specific business for a specific type of price when it's never been discussed. And to me, that just seems wrong if that's happening or has happened. And we've really moved a long way to get past that type of thing where you have those discussions happening before it reaches the dais and it's opened up to the public. So I didn't know if anyone on the dais knows anything about that.
My experience is that whenever it comes to selling property, we come to an agreement on council to sell property before the concept even goes forward from there.
Right.
And like you said, as far as I know, last I heard was buy the property, knock down the buildings, put it in a parking lot.
Yeah, that's what we've talked about, but
I haven't heard anything else from any other direction, person.
because it just seems kind of wrong if there's discussions other than that. And I didn't know if you've heard anything.
No,
Okay.
when I saw that on the agenda, I didn't know, last I heard, well, here was that we didn't know what we were gonna do with it. Parking lot was an option, we were waiting for heirs for
Okay.
presentation and options, what to do with it. We didn't really know, so
Okay.
I was a little bit taken back as well.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about it.
No, nothing about it first.
Okay.
Yeah, selling it was an option, parking lot was an option, that there was options, but I knew nothing about a brewery or anything of that nature.
Okay.
I mean, Jim, from my recollection of the last time we ever did anything like this, either buying or selling property, we as a council would authorize the city manager or yourself and the city manager to negotiate selling a piece of property. It's not something that would just preemptively happen. I mean, obviously, anybody can come to the city manager and say, gee whiz, I'd like to buy that piece of property.
No, if that's going on though, I just think that should be something that we should be.
If it's going on, I'd like to know where it's going on.
Correct. So that's why I was raising the issue
What's going
because
on here?
there's been some discussion, at least from outside, but never on the dais. And I just wanted to air it out if there's an issue there, if there's something going on.
Well, how about if I answer the question?
That's
since I'm the
perfect.
one that,
Okay.
No, let's
That's
just
perfect.
keep them. No. Do you have an answer,
so
Doug?
if I didn't get the semantics right on the agenda item, my intent is that we have a conversation and I get direction.
Okay.
Are we gonna sell it? Are we gonna ask heirs to help us develop it? Are we not sure? We want a parking lot. So maybe I could have used better semantics. Obviously, I'm not pursuing, I mean, if you tell me to sell it, then, at least for the next 4.5 hours, Jim and I would get together and work on that. And then Nancy and I would work on that. But I guess my point is if we're gonna sell it, I need guidance. If we want something else, then that's the direction we go. So I could have used better semantics to put that point on the agenda. Obviously, I didn't put it on as I want a motion to sell it. I want your direction.
Okay.
The brewery. I was approached a year ago, a week after we bought it, 2 weeks after we bought it, by a business owner who was interested in buying it. And I told him we're a long way from being ready to sell it. The council hasn't even decided what they're going to do with it. But to me, it confirmed for me there's interest in the property. Obviously, I didn't tell him he's buying it.
Okay.
So, but that was a year ago, and I have talked about that interest in various venues and formats to say that's the kind of thing I think, I don't get a vote, but that I think would fit in with the other businesses that are there. And every time I've talked about that, I've prefaced that with, I don't make that decision. This group makes that decision, and they will direct me. If they want me to try to sell it to a brewery, so be it. But I want to make sure you understand, I'm not wanting to get ahead of you.
So, no, so the answer that I was looking for is that someone's reached out to you, not the other way around.
Oh, absolutely.
That was the concern that was brought to me, and I said I didn't know anything about it.
And he
Okay.
was ready to write a check a year ago, and I told him, we're nowhere near that.
Okay.
When there's a for sale sign on the property, then, give me a call. Okay. But, his timing was not our timing, and I haven't heard from him for a year. So
Okay.
I've been approached by a couple of other folks that have expressed interest in speculating, and said, when it goes up for sale, you can write an offer just like anybody else.
Well, I believe that's why the person that approached me was irritated, because I think that they may have had some interest in it as well. And they were under the impression that there was already some kind of deal in the works, and I
No.
didn't know anything about it. So that's why I was
Absolutely not.
asking. Okay.
Nope.
Fair enough. So the only other item that I wanted to touch base was I've had some other citizen concerns, and I can tell those concerns are that there's been some just general complaints. When I say complaints, concerns that we as a dais are putting too much of an emphasis on the businesses or the waterfront district and developing some of those areas versus using resources for specifically stated roads and some other things that the citizens would have the benefit to. And I think part of the issue is that a lot of the citizens don't know some of the projects that we have going on. We have road improvement in the works. We have stormwater improvement, which is on for today. We have, we talked about a grant program that would benefit probably mostly citizens. So we have a lot of other programs that are out there and things that are going on in the city that benefit everyone, including our citizens, not just the businesses. So I did want to touch on that. I know that specifically the concern with the roads was one of them because we just haven't had a lot of road work in a long time. But I know that Mr. Dude has been working diligently with the ARPA funds to see if we can even maybe team up with the county, because I know the county's doing some roads as well, which may save some money.
That's the direction we're headed.
Right.
We're working on that.
So, I wanted just to kind of put that out there in response to some of the concerns that I had. But I felt it was best just to air it out since it came from multiple different people at this
Didn't we
point.
also have that company go around and evaluate all of our roads and grade them? So we have been in the works. That's what, about 3 months old, that report, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. So that has been in the works to get the roads done. So yes, I want to
So I just wanted
support that.
I just
Yes.
wanted to touch on that. With that, I think that's all I had for just general commentary. I wanted to move on from commentary from boards and committees, which we've already, I think, touched on.
Yes.
Is there anything else with boards and committees? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to the consent agenda, looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any reason for any kind of discussion? Hearing none, put it to a vote, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. The next item we're going to move to is council business. We've now moved by vote the appointment of the MPO, Citizens Advisory Committee, up to the top. And I'm going to, if I may, I'm just going to go into that one because this is an item that I was confronted with at the MPO board that I sit on. And we have 2 spots that are available. One is a spot where we actually get a vote, and one is an alternate to that spot who also attends the actual meetings. I kind of put feelers out there just with just different folks that I've known in the community. There were a couple of people that volunteered that have never really been involved in politics at all within the city. And one was Mr. Overbeck, who's been a longtime resident, also owns a business, I believe, in the city. And then there was Stephen Coker, who I believe lives on the south side over near, I think right near Mr. Colombo on that same road over there. And he is a retired battalion commander.
Oh, yeah.
Who's been very vocal with me in terms of the basics in the community, the infrastructure, and just safety. And one of his concerns has been the traffic issues on 19 and some of I think the only homicides we've had in the city in the last 3 or 4 years since we've been on the dais together have been traffic homicides with pedestrians. So that's been a big concern of his. So he was quite interested in serving on that board as well. So I was told that the procedure with the MPO is that I just get to pick somebody and pick an alternate, but given the nature of our charter and the form of our government, I would prefer to open it for discussion with you folks and make sure that you guys are comfortable with that. And if anyone's here to speak on that, open it to them for introduction.
Well, as I understand it, you're basically acting in the capacity as an MPO member here, not necessarily as a city council member, correct?
That's true, but our form of
No, I
government.
understand. I'm just being clear, because yeah, normally any sort of appointments would be, all of us would basically theoretically nominate people. Now, I've not seen a lot of enthusiasm for serving on this particular board anyway, so if we have somebody or a couple of people that are willing to do it, I'm more than happy to let them.
And we've been widely criticized for that, by the way, not having that film.
Yeah, but if the county criticizes, it's kind of a hobby of theirs.
Well, I understand that, but it's nice to film it too, if we can. And I know that what they wanted to do is eliminate that spot so they could have an extra spot. But I'd rather fill it with one of our citizens and have some representation from our city, so. And like you said, there's not a whole lot of interest, but we have a couple people that are willing to, actually, it's a CAC board, it's the advisory committee to the MPO. And I think that'll be great to have some representation from within the city. And real representation from both sides. You got someone that lives on the south side and someone that lives over on the north side, so you kind of have the split representation of the city as well.
Well, I'm always for keeping the county happy, so I say we do.
We hope we're.
So by consensus, is everyone okay here?
Yeah, motion to
Yes.
approve mayor's choice, I think is the official thing we have to do.
Second.
Of Nick Overback as
Of Nick
primary and
Overbeck
Steve
as
Coker
primary
well.
member and Stephen Coker as alternate.
And before we vote, did anyone want to speak on this item?
Nick, you're here.
So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your volunteer work and your service to the community. The next item that we have is going to be the stormwater rate study. There's a presentation of results, and it's also an action item as well, is what I understand. So I'm going to pass it to you for that introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we've wrestled with stormwater rates, this council and staff was directed to secure the services of an expert. Stantec has been working on that. They got their results and recommendations for stormwater rates, and they're here this evening to enlighten us. So please introduce yourself and take us through your presentation.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Council. I think we have a presentation here. There we go. Excellent. My name is Jeff Dykstra. I'm a principal at Stantec. Had the privilege to manage the project from our perspective and work with the city to complete this important study. I know there's been a lot of interest in the results of this, so hopefully we have some good, healthy discussion this evening. Next slide, please. Quick overview of the agenda. I've just got about a 15 or 16 slide presentation this evening to summarize the results of the study. Spent some time talking about the background of the city stormwater fund and system, as well as some overall industry context. Talk about the objectives specifically of our study, the things that we looked at as we completed the analysis. We'll review the results of the financial review component of the study, and then provide some conclusions and recommendations at the end. Next slide, please. So the city, the question there on the slide is, why does the city manage stormwater? In a developed city like Port Richey, you have stormwater, you have sidewalks and roads, and when it rains, stormwater has to go somewhere. And as it does, it collects pollutants along the way. There's a little illustration there from the EPA, kind of summarizing what some of those pollutants are: chemicals from vehicles, litter, oil and grease, those sorts of things. All of those pollutants make their way into local rivers, bodies of water. And so the city operates and manages a stormwater system to do two primary things. Number one, to manage those pollutants, and number two, manage the flow of stormwater. And so as a stormwater system, the city, like the cities, it is regulated by the Clean Water Act effectively, which a byproduct of that is your MS4 permit, which the city has to operate a stormwater system. And so what that means is the Florida Department of Environmental Protection manages that permit, and the city has to comply with the requirements of it, regulatorily speaking, and it has to control the pollutants, manage the pollutants that it's sending into local bodies of water. So number one, the reason why the city manages stormwater is to deal with the regulatory requirements that it has. Number two, when the stormwater utility was set up, a primary goal back in 2006 of the fund was to manage stormwater for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Port Richey. And so part of that is public health. A successfully managed stormwater system protects water quality and enhances the community that you live and work in, and the citizens here this evening live and work and play. The third main element of why the city manages stormwater is to mitigate flood control. While we can't completely eliminate, flooding under every storm event or circumstance, a operating well-managed stormwater system goes a long way to mitigating the impacts of that. Out here in the lobby, in the trophy case, if you will, you have a certificate of the community rating system from FEMA, which higher rating provides, or a better rating provides your residents discounts on their flood insurance premiums. So another reason to have a good operating and well-managed stormwater system. Next slide. The City of Port Richey Stormwater Enterprise Fund was established in 2006, and I just briefly summarized one of the main reasons for why council at that time implemented the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, but it really is for the health, safety, and welfare of your community and citizens. The city's stormwater infrastructure, I've just included a few snapshots or statistics there, but we've got roughly 6 miles of ditches and swales. We've got about 2.5 miles of pipes and culverts and other stormwater infrastructure that has to be operated and maintained in order to comply with the permit, but also to manage water quality and to manage the flow of stormwater. Next slide. As we reviewed the city's Stormwater Enterprise Fund, we quickly found a few challenges that the system is dealing with. Number one is just the financial sustainability. The revenues that your existing fees generate don't fund your operating budget. So number one, we found that right away as a sustainability issue. That can't continue forever. The fund will run out of money. The second challenge we looked at was just the administration of the regulatory requirements and having the personnel and staff to be able to do that. Along those lines is the third bullet there, but the need for continuous and proactive maintenance of the system. In discussions with staff, it seems like the maintenance has really been more on the emergency side and reactive as opposed to proactive. And that came to fruition during our study as well. And then fourthly, just the lack of funding available to reinvest in the infrastructure. And so all of those are sort of all revolve around the financial sustainability challenge. But you can see just a couple of snapshots, pictures of activities that happen within the city relative to stormwater maintenance and capital replacement. You have pipes that need to be replaced over time. You have maintenance that has to happen and occur on a regular basis. And additionally, you have pipe that needs to be upsized to meet flow requirements and level of service standards for the system. Next slide. When we put things into cost perspective, we know it, and I know it always comes back to the rate and the money, but it's also helpful to understand a little bit of perspective on the stormwater fee. So right now, the fee for the city is $3 per equivalent stormwater unit, and that fee has been in place since the enterprise fund was established in 2006. When you put that in some just context or overall increases of costs, the blue line on that graph represents consumer price index. That is obviously in the news a lot lately. You probably hear it multiple times a day with the inflation that's happening. But over that same time period, the CPI has increased by 45%. And so what that means is your buying power of that $3 fee today is just over half of what it was in 2006. And so I just want everyone to keep in mind that that's the context of what, part of the context of the discussion we're having this evening.
Why the CPI? There's a lot of indexes out there. CPI, that has to do with the price of eggs. I don't think the stormwater department buys a lot of eggs. I know there's a lot of different CPIs, and I know that there's consumer price indexes when it gets down to government utilities and stuff. I'm just wondering why I'm not looking at the CPI. Makes for a very dramatic graphic, but I fail to see the relevance.
It's just a measure of historical cost. And so you could, yeah, but yeah, if you look at there's actually an index for water and sewer series within CPI, not necessarily stormwater. And that's different cost than a stormwater system has, which is why it wasn't included, but that's even higher than CPI has been. So, yep. Next slide. When you do when you compare your current fee to other local communities, you have one of the lowest in the area. This is the cost for a typical residential household for stormwater services on a monthly basis. The average being right around $11 a month. Next slide. A lot of those local communities are larger in size, and so we wanted to also put into some perspective about throughout the state, other smaller cities. This shows just an example of cities with a population of less than 10,000. And you can see where the city falls. These numbers come from the Florida Stormwater Association survey in 2022. So they're about a year or two old, as it looks backward, but again, just wanted to provide some perspective. Next slide. So the objectives of our review fundamentally focused around the financial sustainability of the fund. We did do a review of the fee and the fee structure and found that to be pretty consistent with the industry. The issue for your city is the level of the fee. And so we really focused on developing a plan that would make the fund sustainable. Next slide. Could you go to skip this one for now? Yeah, there we go. So as we built, as we performed our analysis and did the rate study, we considered several factors or assumptions into a 10-year financial management plan. We started with the city's baseline 2023 budget for the stormwater fund. We made a couple of adjustments to that. One is discussions with staff indicated the need for two additional stormwater FTEs. These staff positions would help with that continuous proactive maintenance of the system, helping with regulatory compliance and those types of things. We also factored in the FDEP fine, $48,000 in 2023 that the city, I don't know if they have paid or will pay. We've also included overall inflation, an average annual inflation on operating expenses of about $3 over a 10-year period. We've included growth. And another key element of the plan was stormwater utilities should invest in maintaining a sufficient operating reserve. And so this plan includes a 3-month operating reserve as well. Another driver on the capital side, I mentioned that a few slides ago. The city has a few different specific pipe replacement projects that they've identified the need for. And those 3 areas are listed there, the southeast and northwest parts of the city. Those are about $180,000 each at this point. That's the estimate for those, and those have been factored in as well. Could you have the previous slide? This slide just summarizes the snapshot of the financial results. So if the fee stays at its current $3, essentially what happens is the fund runs out of fund balances during this current fiscal year. Over the next 6 years, there's about a $2 million deficit in operating expenses as well. In addition to that, there's no funding available for renewal and replacement into the system or capital investment. And so this just should tell us and tell all of you that the existing fees are not sustainable given these operating expenses and capital needs of the system. Good. Skip this one too. Go to the next one. There we go. So we built a 10-year financial management plan for the fund as a result of that to identify what are the level of fee increases needed. This is a snapshot from that financial model, and I've included some bullet point highlights there to call out some numbers that are important, and I'll walk through those briefly. We identified the need to fund all of those costs that we talked about, to raise the stormwater fee to $11.50 per equivalent stormwater unit. That would be effective as quickly as possible. And thereafter, the need for annual 3% adjustments. Those are really to continue with future inflation of operating expenses. So salaries and wages of staff, health insurance premiums, cost of repair, and those types of things. What this plan does, though, is provides the city with a sustainable 3 months operating reserve. It reinvests into the stormwater system, and it does so in a consistent and stable way. You will see there in the bottom right, you'll see some borrowing potentially. We've included that just as a potential funding source. The city under this plan wouldn't necessarily have to borrow if some of those initial 3 replacement projects that are $180,000 could be deferred a little bit. So the financing of those could shift the need and amount of that borrowing. But this plan is where we're recommending that the city get to. Could you go to the previous slide? So what does that initial rate increase fund? And I've tried to break it down into 3 components for you. Number one, $4.50 of that increase is to simply fund the existing operating budget. That's over half of the increase. About a third of the increase would go towards funding those 2 additional and needed full-time equivalencies to operate the stormwater system proactively, continue to do the maintenance, keep up with the regulatory compliance and reporting. And then the third sliver there, the blue, the $1.25 of that increase would go towards reinvesting in the capital infrastructure of the stormwater system. Next 2 slides down. After implementation of that increase to $11.50, this is where the city would sit on the local comparison for a residential customer, right around the average. And so with increases that communities on this are seeing as well. It's expected that the city would remain, comparable in the future as well. Next slide.
Excuse me, St. Peter First got $22.90. Is that annual, and is that monthly?
Monthly, yeah.
That really skews the whole chart here.
These are all monthly numbers, yeah.
But also, if you look at our area, which we're talking about Pasco County, Newport Richey, they're on the very low end of that curve too. All the higher monthly cost comparisons are down south of us.
And a lot of them are barrier islands, which face different challenges than we do. And I can tell you for instance, Safety Harbor, as part of their stormwater treatment, they have street sweepers down there. If you've ever known anybody who's been involved with the city with street sweepers, that is probably, John smiling over there, probably the most expensive to buy and maintain piece of equipment you can put in the city. So, obviously it's not apples to oranges. It's as tempting as it is to plop this in the middle of this. I don't necessarily see that. We will move up here, right? Okay.
Yep, it's difficult to show apples to apples comparisons with these. You find me a community that's exactly like Port Richey, I'd be happy to put 20 of them on here and show you, but.
One of the questions that I had for you is the idea that we need more employees. Is that something that was a recommendation from the company, or was that a city department saying that, hey, we could use a couple extra people? Do you know where you come up with the right amount of employees for a small city?
Yeah, we didn't do an staffing analysis on where the city stormwater fund compared to others. That wasn't part of our scope of work, frankly. So those came from needs identified by staff.
From my standpoint, sitting up here, I can't see, our city's small enough to where we've had the same people maintaining it for a very long period of time. So
Go to what you're saying. I mean, typically we swap personnel for a lot of reasons between public works, utilities, and wastewater. Right now, what we're doing is we're adding 2 FTEs, and we are putting it smack in wastewater and funding it entirely out of wastewater. And, we're a small city. We've got, 70 odd employees. So 2 FTEs.
How many do we have right now? How many are we already?
So we have one full-time dedicated stormwater.
Yeah, so we've been tripling our full.
we're going to triple our manpower.
Triple our manpower out of that budget.
Right.
That
So,
was the question.
and those are some of the issues that I had just looking at this. I didn't necessarily, personally, I didn't really agree with that. I think that to keep it priced, around where Newport Richey and Pasco County is, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to be in that same ballpark.
Well, I think I'm agreeing with you, but let him go on with his presentation, and then we'll get back and join on that. That's my suggestion.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Yeah, we're coming to the end here. So our conclusion is that the existing fund is not financially sustainable. Your current fees don't support your current operating budget, and let alone these projected or additional FTEs and capital investment in the system. And so we're recommending that you increase the fee to $11.50 per ESU, and then look at a multi-year plan of rate adjustments in line with inflation costs in the future. These would put you comparable to local communities, and then we do recommend that, especially after you implement these, that you do look at performing periodic financial reviews. That will help proactively manage the system so we don't get into a situation where rates are flat for 16 years and then we have to do a large increase. So next slide is just restating those, but as a needed direction from council.
The other question that I had for you is, I know that you had the employees on there, but I think a lot of smaller cities would outsource certain things. For example, you talk about compliance and other things like that. We reach out to, we contract with U.S. Water, U.S. Systems, our MS4 firm. But how much that costs us? Around $5 or $6 grand a year to have that together.
Yeah, it's 10,000.
So, I think you're talking about employees.
US Water would continue to help us with it, with MS4 permit. They have the expertise. The FTEs that are in here are doing maintenance on your system. They're actually doing the work, where what we do now is we'll pull somebody or several somebodies from either other utility work, other public works, and assign them to go maintain the system. So anytime we're working on stormwater, we're not working on other parts of our system.
Which comes out of utilities, so.
Either utilities or public works, yeah.
Okay, understood.
Well, I mean, are we looking at where we're gonna go right here? Again, we've known for a long time $3 isn't sufficient. That's a given. I can look at page 27, our agenda page 27 with the pie chart. And I can look at the R&R capital and the existing O&M budget. I've got $4.75 there. We had $3 existing, we're up to $7.75. That puts us right around where Pasco County is at right now. My preferred methodology when it comes to capital expenditures is, we're essentially pre-funding a lot of capital expenditures by jumping it up to $11.
That's if we agree to do that.
I am saying if we do, and, again, I know this isn't exactly the best time for it, but, we need to discuss, the potential for funding that through bonds. We can float a long-term bond, tax-free bond. Now's not a great time, interest rates are high. But, we can do a long-term bond and build that into, the stormwater rate. We got a lot of pipes, whether it's the stormwater or sewage or water pipes that they just all, like 80% of them need replacing. When we look at this plan under the current scenario, some of these pipes aren't going to be replaced for 6, 7, 8 years. It's just like it's being pushed way out there for us to keep paying into it and pre-fund these projects. So I'm not inclined to go that way. Again, when I look at the pie chart I was looking at before, I tack our $3 onto it. I'm at a range that I think is pretty comfortable. I'm reluctant to go much higher. This year, inflation's hard. We can hope it's going to go down, but it's hitting all our residents' pocketbooks at once. I don't know if you all looked at your electric bill this year or this month, but after the first year, everybody's electric bill went up. Basic average $20 per 1,000 kilowatt hours. That was a rate increase that was approved by the state. On top of that, the city gets taxes off of that, so our taxes off of electric went up coincidentally on top of that. You've got that. You've got, for the average resident in today's inflationary environment, we're getting $5 and $10 to death. And I would really like to keep this in a much more comfortable area than $11. I'm not inclined to sign off on an ordinance that has 10 years of incremental price increases automatically built into it.
I agree. I think we just readdress it later if we need
Yeah,
to.
I mean,
So-
we address it as we go.
In my humble opinion, I looked at what they said we need to operate basically on a day-to-day basis to budget an annual budget, and it puts us, like you said, right where we're right where the county's at, which makes sense to me. And I think that we have old pipes like every other city across Florida, and most of them don't replace all their pipes and float bonds. A lot of them just go and fix the pipes, and we have personnel that do that on a day-to-day basis. So I don't see a problem with that. But I don't like going all the way up to $11 and change when I think we can at this point or this juncture move it up to, in essence, $7.50, which would be the 3 plus the 450. And the $7.50 would put us to where I believe that we would then be able to balance a regular budget.
Well,
And
another thing too, if you go back to one of the previous slides where it basically says, what the EPA wants us to do, and basically what they want us to do is ensure the collection, treatment, and storage and disposal of stormwater. You know, the little chart there, you know, showing pet waste on page 18. Pet waste goes into pipes. Oil and grease from streets go into pipes. Lawn fertilizer, pesticides go into pipes. Everything goes into the pipes. The only reason I'm bringing this up is that we have nothing in our stormwater treatment plan to actually treat stormwater. If we did, we could find grant money for that. There is state and federal monies available to help you from rushing untreated stormwater right into the Gulf of Mexico, Miller's Bayou, and the river. And we're not looking at that. And I think we should be looking at that. There is grant money to be had, but they're not going to help you, again, rush untreated water into the bayou or the river or wherever. So that's an aside to the rate, but that's something I think we should be looking at. You know, is there a place we can do more retention? Is there a place where can we do? There was a city in the Keys that got well over $1 million from Restore Act funds to do deep injection wells for stormwater.
Okay.
I mean, you know, there's a lot of ways of actually accomplishing the goal of reducing the amount that gets into the natural waterways as opposed to just figuring out ways to get it in there into the waterways more efficiently.
And the other thing, just to touch on, I know that, just to kind of shift gears a little bit, the county has put, I think, $5.1 million into their stormwater system as it relates to this area, okay? Which one of the things that I think as a council we need to ask Mr. Duke to do is maybe reach out to the county and just see what direction they're going, because I know that at some point they were pushing stormwater, it was flooding out the trailer park, and that was going down Ridge Road and that corridor. And as a city, I think that we've directed a lot of that water down 19 north and then into the Salt
Well,
Springs.
they also
as a
took over
system.
Magnolia Valley and a lot of that water that was getting dumped into that area.
But the county,
Jim, shouldn't our stormwater plan be coordinating with the county?
I know the statute allows you to do that, whether we have to or not. I'm not-
And, you know, but obviously, we're the end of the line.
yeah, but the bottom line is that the county has resources. If they're moving all their water and it stops here, it's a big problem for us as a city and our residents. So we really probably ought to just reach out to them now that we've had the city done, that we're going to, I would imagine, have to adjust our stormwater rates, and just kind of see what their study shows and what their plans are in terms of
And not
retaining
to-
water, moving
And
water.
not to mention, a lot of that water is getting dumped right next to a state park. And so, you know, the state has an interest there too. I mean, some of them big old pipes are coming in right at the edge of Salt Springs Park. Probably some areas right through Salt Springs.
No, I agree. I just think that, that we're kind of, it is what it is. We're a small city. So, when we're talking about a stormwater plan without tying into the county, I don't think that that's the best way to go about planning stormwater unless you at least kind of reach out and see what the county's doing in terms of moving their water, because it is going to impact us. That having been said, I wanted to go on to other council members to get some opinions.
It would be interesting what the county, working with the county, go forward. Also be interested to see what Newport Richey is, since they're just to the south of us, and
Same issues with the river.
yeah,
Yeah, they're doing
With the
the
river.
same.
Correct. But their stormwater rates are probably one of the lowest on here, and they're a waterfront community too, so it's,
I'm hoping before tonight's over with that we do something tonight. Maintaining that $3 is not going to fix anything, but I feel we should do something.
on that note, just on that issue, I would be a vote yes, anywhere up to 750. Anything more than that, I'd be able to just to let everyone know where I stand, specifically, just so you guys in your discussion, you're making up your mind. But, I don't think raising it any more than that at this time I'd be comfortable with, even with this study. So I just wanted to let you know where I stood. I don't know what everyone else is saying.
Mentioned right now, we have one FTE who's dedicated to stormwater. And then we pull one or two, I guess, FTEs from other departments to satisfy needs for stormwater. Those costs, when you pull the person from the associate department, is that reflective in this pie chart as to the current operating? Saying it a different way, when you pull that person out of the department, does their time get charged to stormwater, or does their time remain in the respective department?
I think we can see that Mr. Clary is in the budget where we allocate a certain amount of personnel costs to the utility. And, you know, we, now on a bi-weekly basis, I don't know that we're identifying, okay, Joe Smith spent 50% of his time doing public works and 20% doing stormwater, and, you know, I don't know that we break it down like that, but what you do see in the budget process is that a certain amount of personnel cost is allocated to stormwater, and a certain amount of personnel cost is allocated to water and sewer.
So, right now in the stormwater budget, we essentially are carrying those 3 FTEs, right?
No, we're carrying one. You're carrying one.
We're only carrying one FTE in the budget. The time, yes,
We have one person who's full-time doing wastewater management.
correct.
One
But
person.
But when we pull somebody else from the utility.
Yeah, are we
department, have them
allocating
do
time?
stormwater, are we allocating their time to the stormwater budget?
30%, yes.
Okay, so we are, right now on the pie chart, we are reflecting,
I don't know about his pie chart, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the green slice of the pie chart reflects your existing budget, which includes the 30%.
reflecting the FTEs within the green space.
Talking about
So
Yes,
the
exactly.
2 FTEs is actually an additive.
Yes.
To bring it to 5 FTEs, essentially.
No.
Well, yeah, we're already
You're
reflecting.
replacing the 30% with the 2.
Well, yeah.
So I'm double counting the same dollars.
Yes.
Thank you. So the 2 FTEs is actually also reflected in the green already, because it's already budgeted.
Probably not 100% of that, but part of it.
Closer.
But that's not an
So,
issue I wanted.
I mean,
No.
I've done staffing for a long time, unfortunately. One person in a department of stormwater is kind of, they go on vacation, we have a major problem. We have a major problem, we don't have anybody that is in a certified position for
Oh, what is-
stormwater.
Yeah,
The guy that puts in-
I get that, but
What he
right
does.
now, from a budgetary perspective, we're carrying most of the 3 people. If we add another 2 FTEs, we're actually freeing up those 2 people we typically pull and assigning them directly. So we're actually gaining 2 people net.
Yes, you're just gaining 2 FTEs, and the people that you're pulling from Public Works are going back to Public Works to finish their job over there. Because you pulled them now from their work
But
over there.
already doing their job plus the FTE. work.
I
So
really
we're
don't
adding
know
2
that.
people.
We're pulling them.
If they've got a 40-hour job, 40-hour-a-week job, they're doing that job, and you pull them away from that for 10 hours a week, then their 10 hours of job is not getting done.
Obviously it is, because it's been
No,
done for the
obviously,
past 10 years.
no, not obviously not. We don't know that.
So what I'm trying to get is at $11.50, if you look at the monthly cost comparison for a population city under 10,000, we're the second highest in the state.
If you go to that 11 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
11.50.
Yeah,
The only way we don't
I know,
go to
11
that
o'clock.
11.50. Yeah, the only way we don't go to that 11.50 is if we eliminate the 2 FTEs, which are theoretically accounted for within the existing budget in some fashion. That brings us to $9 or $8.75. If we do our current budget shortfall of $4.25, plus our capital reinvestment of $1.50, plus our existing $3, we're gonna have to do the capital reinvestment, because even if you bond it, you're gonna have the monthly bond payments, and then you're gonna have to carry them within the annual bond payments, and you're gonna have to carry them within that same budget as well. So whether you bond it out and do all the money at once, or you do a capital reinvestment, you're still gonna be paying the same amount into the same budget. All that being said, I think the most prudent thing to do is to go to an 875 budget. That way it starts building up our capital reserves. It eliminates the 2 FTEs, which are theoretically covered in some fashion within the current budget, and it makes up for a budget shortfall.
Salaries don't forget an FTE. I don't know how that works in the money wise, because I just
Theoretically, it'd
think,
be that half of that.
I mean, you're pulling them probably a lot anyway. You're pulling those people a lot anyway, and they already have, if they didn't have a 40-hour-a-week job to do in Public Works, they wouldn't be there.
Well, yeah, but they theoretically, they have a 30-hour week job to do in Public Works, and then they put 10 hours a week onto stormwater. And I keep pointing at you for stormwater just because you're the budget person.
But let me weigh in. I think there's different times when there's different need for different things around the city, and a lot of people in a small city multitask. So there's going to be times where you have a hurricane rolling in, and yeah, we have the vac truck out there, and we're really focusing on stormwater because we want to get ahead of it, right? But then there's going to be times on in the dry season where there's nothing going on other than maybe we need to move a couch that someone threw in a ditch, and that's it. So I think
They've got infrastructure that they need to fix in the dry season. Replace the 9-inch pipe with an 18-inch pipe when there's no water in it.
well, that's different.
Why?
There's a
That's in the infrastructure.
When there's a broken pipe, that's different than.
I didn't say broken, I said replace. I didn't say it was broken. Because he has a picture of here, a 9-inch pipe that should be an 18-inch pipe.
Right, but that I think goes into the capital improvement, which doesn't have to do with our current operating budget, from what I understand. That's the blue part of the pie chart.
It's unfunded right now, yeah.
Having a passable understanding of geometry, the amount of water you can move through a 9-inch pipe versus an 18-inch pipe, why the heck do we need all that much more capacity in that location? Is that because of development or,
Oh, I don't know, that's per code.
or code?
Per code, standard size. It goes to 100-year storm.
So you're basically saying any pipe replaced now has to be an 18-inch pipe, no matter where, no matter how big it is?
That's per code, it's 18 inches.
What code? It's our building code? Our city code? Well, I mean, there's like building code and then there's city code. That's all I'm asking. Building guy?
I don't, stormwater is totally different from what I deal with, so I'm not 100%.
I was hoping you know.
The person I'll probably know is probably the man standing at the podium, if there's some.
Hi, podium guy.
Right.
So the,
There's probably a time to ask if there's
Somebody
some requirement
speak
to
up.
replace these things.
We have other engineers, well.
Is there a requirement that we have to replace these? I guess that's probably a fair question that we need to consider.
and in discussing with staff, it was for to meet code and flow requirements. And so,
I'm asking what code?
which code?
I don't have it with me, but I can bring it next time.
I mean, 9 inches is this big. I mean, it's not a big pipe with water going through it. It was storm.
9-inch pipe is
I know,
9
not this
inch
big.
inside diameter. It's a 9-inch pipe.
But you would see dramatic, just not an engineer, but you would see dramatic increases in flow through an 18-inch.
And the difference in volume, you can push, again, 9-inch, 18-inch, okay? It's not twice as much water, it's probably like 20 times as much water. It's geometry, and I never was really good at geometry, but I can tell you from fireworks, big difference between a 3-inch shell and a 6-inch shell. It ain't just twice as big, it's like 6 times as big. So, same difference, you shoot about pipes, HDE pipes actually. But
So the project you referenced there, that would be covered within the $1.25 capital reinvestment. Yep. That's part of the replacement plan, the city's replacement plan.
Staff is saying they need 2 more people. I get that. We can pull the third person from Public Works. I still think they, we're on the water, and this is stormwater, and we're getting it from Pasco, we're saying, and we've got one guy that's assigned to it.
But we're a small city, so that's just the nature of being a small city.
So if
If
you
you
hire a guy, then he can go and help Public Works if he's got nothing to do.
Yeah, but no different than comparing our police department. You can't have 300 officers in a small city. So you have to look at it and say, what can we afford and what can our
well, keeping in mind, FTEs and people are different. I mean, a full-time equivalent, as I said, a full-time equivalent. Somebody work, 40 hours of work time. You could have 2 people working 20. That's one full-time
But when
equivalent.
you start adding heads, then you get this recurring cost, and it's just going to drive taxes up, whether you do it through the water department or through ad valorem. But I don't think it's viable to add people. I think we can utilize what we have.
I still think we have the 3 FTEs covered in our budget, more or less.
Yeah.
Right, just coming out of utility fund or somewhere else.
The,
But it's covered, the money's covered in the current budget, in that green space.
if I could just add, just to clarify, the 2 FTEs, this plan assumes your existing operating budget plus 2 new FTEs.
Right now,
Is there a community standard for our size city for employees, how many employees handle stormwater? There has to be some sort of an association or community standard or something.
I'm not aware of
Guess on our part, because
I'm
we're
not-
just guessing, all of us are just guessing.
I'm not
None
aware
of us
of
are stormwater people.
I'm not aware of a community standard, but the regulations hold us accountable for the outcomes. And what Mr. Dykstra mentioned, that we haven't, I think we missed it. Right now, we're doing emergent response. When the hurricane's coming, we go out and do stuff. When a pipe is clearly broken, and, we replaced a galvanized steel pipe a week or two ago, it was 50% rotted out. But what he put into the plan is that it really isn't enough to just do emergent. There's no day-to-day, you're assigned stormwater. Go out and clean out grates number 1 through 10. The next day, go out and mow swales 1 through 5. And if you have to replace a pipe, that's not a 1 or 2 guy job. So yeah, we're gonna be pulling guys from other assignments, but we can continue to do emergent work.
But we're still getting it done even.
No, we're not. We're not doing the maintenance and the ongoing. We're doing the emergent stuff.
You're fixing the broken, but you're not preventing it from breaking.
And that's I guess that's what Jeff and I are trying to build into this, is that we're getting the emergency stuff done. We had 4, 5, 6 guys preparing for hurricane. But tomorrow, there's 1 or less guys going to be assigned to go out and maintain our stormwater system. And I guess from the operational side, that's where I'm trying to get to. Now, if 2 FTEs is too much and you give me 1 or you give me 0.5, I'm going to put him to work doing that. But there's a body of work not getting done. And eventually, the regulatory expectations catch up with us. How many times did you mow the swales? Well, we just didn't have the people. How many pounds of rubbish did you take out of the grates and the swales? And it has to be measured. It has to be disposed of, it has to be recorded, and then it has to be reported. And right now, Richie does that. And 100 other things. He gets it done. But there's I guess I'm expounding on what Mr. Dykstra said. There's a body of work that we're not doing.
Well, if I can interrupt here for a second, most of our swales are basically ditches. Isn't Public Works mowing those? Isn't that
They
Public
have
Works?
to be mowed.
Isn't Public Works doing that?
Well, that depends on who's available.
Yeah, but I mean, as a function, because maintaining the roadsides and mowing those ditches, is that not Public Works, not wastewater?
I don't know which individual actually goes out and mows them. I can find out for you.
To me, that when I see the mowers out and I see guys out doing it, to me that's Public Works. They maintain parks, they mow the grass on city right of ways, which are the swales. That's Public Works work. So I understand there's stuff like, cleaning out the collection areas, weighing and cataloging and all that. That's very, from a day-to-day activity standpoint, very
Well, it cost
wastewater
us
oriented.
$48,000, it was gonna cost us a whole lot more, because we didn't do what we were supposed to do.
Yep, but I think going back to what Todd's saying is, yeah, we can add 2 people.
Whoa. What cost us
Yeah, this-
$48,000?
What,
For fine.
That was a fine, that was
The fine, yeah.
that was a reporting issue.
That was a regulatory reporting issue.
Right, that was a reporting issue.
well, somebody had to do it, somebody had to do the reporting, right?
Right, but we
Well,
outsourced
if he's fixing a pipe, he can't, I wanna get to the point where we're not just fixing stuff, that
Yep.
we're preventing it from breaking.
Yep.
And you got one guy that's supposed to fix it when it's broken, pull from the other guys, and now you want him to prevent it from happening. One guy, one person.
But let me weigh in. Yeah, we can add 2 people over here to stormwater, but then that gives less people on parks, and utilities, so then we cut two people over there. It's one half dozen the other, and I think that's what Mr. McCleary has been saying. Yeah, we can coin them as, or give them the job title for stormwater, and we add two people there. But what Mr. McCleary is saying is then we take two people away from.
No, just to clarify, this is not taking from Public Works and Utilities and putting into stormwater. This is in addition to.
But we've been able to maintain and do this for the most part for years with what we have.
So with the staff we have, how much preventative capital infrastructure have we completed in the past 6 months? I want to know, how much infrastructure have we prevented the pipes from breaking? That we knew the pipe was 50,
Well,
60 years
that's
old? No,
not
it's a legitimate question, Bill.
Not
How many, infrastructure, how much of the infrastructure of the old 50-year-old pipes have we said, that's going to break, let me fix that before it breaks so Bill Colombo doesn't have water for 6 hours? They got to turn the water off and fix that pipe.
I would venture, how does one know that a stormwater pipe is going to fail?
It's 50 years old.
Well, that applies to 80% of the pipes in the city.
Okay, so we have to replace 80% of the pipes. One person has to do that, one guy.
No, you hire.
I'm gonna make a motion that we increase the stormwater fee to $9.
If there's no second and that motion dies, I'd be looking to see if someone would entertain or make a motion for $7.50, which would be the $3 that we set plus our current operating budget at $4.50.
I'd make a motion for $8.
I'll make a motion for.
There's a motion on the table for $8.
Hold on here. You said if that doesn't get a second, you meant it did not get a second, so
Right.
I'm looking for another.
I didn't hear another second, so that motion dies.
So it wasn't an if, it was absolute.
Right.
You made a motion, does
Yes.
it die for lack of a second? It
Well,
did,
no.
it's been 10 minutes now. Does anybody want to second our motion? That's where we're
Our
going.
motion-
Yes or no?
$8, anyone gonna second that?
No, okay, so it's over now, now you can
Okay.
seek another motion.
I make a motion for $8.50.
A second.
We have a motion for $8.50, a second. This is one I want to open up to the public. This is going to affect everyone's water bills. And I want public input on this. I know that there were some folks that signed up, but I don't know where the sign-up sheet is. So by show of hands, if you'd like to speak. Miss Pat Rogers, come on up.
I think I'm on the list, aren't I?
We can't find the sign.
It's another parliamentary procedure. What's unique at Port Richards for our new council mayor is once a motion has been made and seconded, the public automatically gets the right for input. They don't need to sign up.
Right. So I'm gonna invite
You said if people didn't sign up, they got to speak anyway.
Well, no, that's what I was doing.
Okay. Whether they signed up or not, they can speak. Generally, you do that after your conversation. Okay.
Is this thing on? Yeah, okay. Well, my question is, Pat Rogers, address is on record. My question is, this is going on to our water bill now. Didn't we just have a rate increase on our water bill too? Or is that still in the works?
We had one a year or so ago, didn't we? A small one that was,
You had one almost 2 years ago that was adopted by this council a couple of years before that
right.
and never implemented.
It was an incremental rate from probably 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So yes, that did show up on your water
So
bill.
now you're talking,
Previous to that, there were two incremental rates that the then council declined to put into effect.
That wasn't for stormwater, that was.
That was city water, yeah,
City
that's
water.
potable water, yes.
But I don't think,
Answer the question.
but to answer the question, I don't think we've addressed stormwater since I've been on the dais or even a long time ago.
no.
It not changed since.
Correct, it appears.
But, well, my question to this is included in our water bill, right? So
She's correct.
Yeah.
my $34 water bill is going to go to $40-something. And, well, I'm just a single person, so I don't use a lot of water. So the question I have is, a lot of us are living on a restricted income, and electric bills going up, water bills are going up, groceries are out of sight. How much can a resident take? Keep that in mind too when you start talking numbers out of our pockets.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Mr. Mueller, welcome.
Dave Mueller. My address is on file.
Yeah, your names, your addresses are on file, but the city clerk has to record those names and addresses, then she has to go and look them up. It's kind of easier.
5439 BLUEPOINT. Anyway, $8 is where we were at 6 months ago. So it looks like we're right back at the same story. Stormwater has not been maintained in this city. Anybody driving south down Old Post, looking west down my canal, can see the results of that. And if this is going to get addressed, my recommendation is let's get the county in here. Let's try to address what runs in our canals, because it impacts all of us here. And I think this is long overdue. $3, like I said, just putting a cost of living increase on that right now would be right around $8. Sounds like you guys have set up with that. I'm happy about that, but I'd like to see stuff getting done, doing maintenance, not just reacting, being proactive. Also, I know the residential rate is currently $3. Is there a differential rate for commercial, like the Walmart parking lot that runs all that water out? I don't know if it's $3 times, maybe they got more units. But anyway, if there's a differential in rate, maybe we look at addressing that for the commercial properties that have lots of parking lots that drain into our canals. Thank you.
Anyone else that'd like to speak?
Sherry Scherer, 7802 Davis Street. I'm one of those lower income residents, so $10 coming out of my pocket maybe hurts a little bit more than some of yours. And I have a little bit of a problem with pre-funding stuff. Most people, when you go buy a car, you take out a loan. You buy a house, you take out a loan. You don't pay for it right away. So I don't see, our infrastructure is bad. I've said it for many, many years, although people don't hear me. Needs to be replaced. Roads, pipes, all that. In my I've been here since 1991. The roads on the south side have never been repaved. We don't have curbs. Most of us don't have sidewalks, stuff that makes residential living more enjoyable. I've made extensive repairs to my home, made it look a whole lot better than what I bought it, and Port Richey has not improved my roads, anything like that. So I think it's better to plan for replacing stuff that's broken, take out a loan, pay for it, and then put that in our budget, repaying that loan. Yes, interest rates are terrible. Hopefully they'll go down and you can refinance. So that's just something I want you to keep in mind for people that are, a little bit lower on the income level than a lot of other people. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Welcome.
Chet Jasek, 5134 Miller Bayou Drive. I can see where it needs to be raised somewhat, but we're talking about raising rates, collecting more money. I'd like to see a plan on where that money is going to be spent. How is it going to be spent? Is it just strictly digging ditches? Is it going to replacing pipes? What are you going to use the money for? It's general thing is stormwater, but what about the stormwater? What is going to be improved? That's what I'd like to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commentary from the public? Hearing none, any other commentary from the dais? Before we call it to a vote,
What's the motion?
Motion was for 850. It was, no, it was Mr. McClary, if I'm not mistaken. There was a second from Councilwoman Rodriguez.
Correct.
And at this time, I think we just put it to a vote.
Our code states that the rate for stormwater is to be kept with the city clerk. It can be changed by council by resolution. That's what you have before you. And just for clarification, I can change this resolution. It's not a problem whatsoever. If you want to make $8 to $8, that would be a $5 increase. Just give me the date when it goes into effect and tell me if there's any other, the present resolution before you show increments of 3% going forward. So just be clear that you want to raise it from $3 to 8 something, and when it goes into effect, that's the only resolution.
I amend my motion then to $8 with no annual increases, only to be approved.
Was it 8 or 850?
850, I'm sorry. He said 8, and then I got confused.
Yeah, that's my mistake.
And when's the effective date?
Effect date would be.
Yeah, but he said it and you liked it, so we can go back to 8.
What was in the resolution before you was it's September 30th.
September 30th would be then what's in the resolution. So that I would keep that as is.
Thank you.
And am I presuming that there's your second to his amended?
Yes, it
Okay,
is second.
so we have a motion and a second to clarify 850 with no incremental increases and the effect date to be
September 30th, just like in the proposed resolution in front of you.
That being said, if this fails, I intend to make a motion for 750, which would be 2.5 times what we have right now, and puts us right in line, which is what I think we ought to be. In today's hyperinflation environment, we can readdress this next year. Way more comfortable with 750 than 8. So I'm just saying, if this fails, that's coming.
and I mirror that. I think that we need to increase it, but up to 850, I'm not comfortable with either. So I would vote for an increase. It's not that high. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay, nay. So we have, can we poll just because I think I heard?
Councilwoman Rodriguez, what did you vote? Womble, what did you vote?
Nay.
Mayor Scott Tremblay, what is your vote?
Nay.
Councilman Tom McCrary, what is your vote?
Yay.
Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella, what is your vote?
Nay.
Okay, so it fails.
Okay, so that motion, it fails.
So I will restate the motion as the same as the previous motion, except 750 instead of 850 with no prorated increments over the next several years. We can readdress this next year.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and then a second. Now that we have a new motion and second, I think the public has the right to speak again. So I wanted to readdress the general public. If anyone would like to add anything, please raise your hand. Seeing no hands, any discussion on the diets here? Hearing none, let's put it to a vote. Call it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
And we'll pull the panel again.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez, what is your vote? Councilman Bill Colombo, what is your vote?
Aye.
Scott Tremblay, Mayor,
Aye.
vote. Councilman Tom McCrary, your vote? Aye.
So here's that.
Nay?
Aye.
I'm sorry.
I said nay.
Nay.
Todd said nay. Tom said aye.
Vice Mayor Tom.
Aye.
Motion carries. And that closes that item.
Just for the record, all resolutions must be reduced to writing. I made those changes on this, and we'll have it retyped. And, thank you. No.
Thank you. All right, on to our next item on council business. It's a flood insurance assessment update. I'm going to pass that to Mr. Dude for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this one will be short. We have an obligation to present the report that we submit has to be presented to council, so it's in your packet as information only. We have been anxiously anticipating a response from CRS, which we have not yet received as of 4 o'clock this afternoon. So as soon as we get that response, we'll know what our actual rating is. But this is so that it's on the agenda, you have received it and can peruse that at your leisure. That's all I needed for that item, Mr. Mayor.
And was this an action item?
No, sir.
With that, unless there's any discussion, we'll move on to the next item. That item's going to be the quarterly fund income statements as of December 31st. I think this is something that the dais requested, so thank you for putting that on. And I wanted to invite Mr. Duke for introduction of any city employees in the county.
You're correct, Mr. Mayor. This was requested by council. Appreciate our finance director, Ms. Goslin, putting this together for you. Obviously, we stand for your questions, but this is straight out of the budget reports that come out every week. I guess I would add, you had asked for these quarterly, so you'll be seeing them quarterly. The regular reports are posted. You know, if you want all 70 pages, those are we put those online and can be accessed there as well. But we'll continue to put these in your packet as a quarterly report.
And I had a couple of questions that I wanted to know if I could direct them at our financial director. I believe she would be the one that would have the answers.
Certainly.
Originally, this budget cycle, we had budgeted money that would be carried over and bolster our reserves. Are we on track to hit our goal or what we've budgeted in terms of reserves towards the end of the budget cycle?
Yes, we have budgeted $300,000 for contingency, and we haven't spent any of that yet.
So we're right on pace then.
Yes.
In your opinion, just looking at the finances, is there anything that we need to adjust or maybe recommendations for city management that we may need to adjust to make sure that we stay on point?
Not to my knowledge. I will recalculate the budget using the $7.50 that was just approved for stormwater and see where we're at there, but for the other funds, I don't have anything to add.
Thank you. So we'll get an update on that once you recalculate.
Yes.
Okay. And does anyone else have any questions or need for discussion? Or anything? Mr. Colombo, anything on this one? Councilwoman Rodriguez?
No, thank you.
We'll move on then. Thank you for that information. To the surplus of agency vehicles, which is the next item. And I wanted to pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police department has identified 3 vehicles that are no longer of service to the city. Would request that those are, I would request a motion to approve surplus of the agency vehicles to be disposed of.
There's some real beauties.
I don't know why you're getting rid of that 2006 Crown Vic. I have no idea.
Motion to sell the cops
Keep
cars.
that around, that would be an antique.
We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Motion
Well, look here by the motion.
Motion to give Linda the Crown Vic.
motion to surplus the agency vehicles. Thank you.
So we have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move on to the next item, which is the sole source purchase, which is a high 555 SC ammonia analyzer. I'll let you.
Come on, you could have tried that.
Chicken.
Monochloramine. Well, of course, that's very common. I assume you want me to introduce that.
If it's not by mistake, isn't ammonium monochloride the one we use to disinfect our water?
Yes, sir. That's why we need to monitor it.
That's what we want.
So, as you can see from the documentation included, this piece of machinery is vital. Without it, we are sending personnel to the water plant every 4 hours to do the monitoring. The piece of equipment that we have, I believe it was in 2015, the company indicates went obsolete. So we are replacing a piece of equipment that's mission critical, or we spend money on personnel to do the work of this machine. So it is sole source. We have a Hatch installs, monitors, and services our system, and it is sole source because they're the only place to get this piece of equipment, and this piece of equipment is the only piece of equipment that fits into the system that we have. So would request a motion to approve purchase of the Hatch 5500 SC ammonium monochloramine analyzer.
And the only issue that I had, or question that I had, is the sole source issue. I just felt it hard to believe that there was only one company that would make this piece of equipment, and whether or not there's other agencies, for example, the county or any other cities that purchase this equipment that we can maybe go off of a different way, and then that would be, if they've already off the list.
As I understand it from staff, the piece of equipment that we're trying to buy is the only piece of equipment that brand, that model, that make, those specs fits into the system that we have. That doesn't make it a sole source.
Could I interject? It's like a component of another system.
Yes, sir.
That's the component. No other person makes that component.
And because our system is maintained, serviced, and provided by one company, they have the piece of equipment that fits into their system. And, I can't buy this piece of equipment from another vendor. It's not there. I hate to put Mr. Cruz on the spot, but if you've got anything or Mr. LaCar.
Our city might be getting rid of it.
Earlier this year in October, we renewed our service agreement with HOG. So basically, all the equipment and everything that's serviced by them within the water plant is through HOG. So it's basically, we already have an agreement with them that was approved in October, which we have on page 86 in your agenda. That service agreement is basically, we can't buy another piece of equipment that would go along with that service agreement because the service agreement is with HOG. So we can't go and buy another analyzer to go along with that. And and if you search monochloramine ammonia analyzers, HOG is pretty much on the Google search, if you want to do that. So,
Right, but even when you look at it, because I looked to see if it's sole source, I saw when you pull it up on eBay and the other marketplaces, they're selling for $7 to $10 grand. So ours was listed at 28, and that was the other issue that I had, is it's sole source, but it's listed, and I don't know if it's because it's a different unit or whatever, but it looked like that piece of equipment was selling for a lot less money online, and I don't know if it's because it.
but we have a service agreement with them in place. I can't buy another piece of equipment from another manufacturer with a service agreement.
No, it was the same manufacturer that I looked up, this exact thing. If you pull it up, it's online for a lot less money. And I didn't know if we had
This is
a,
straight from the manufacturer, this is straight from them. Not eBay or third source party, this is coming straight from HOG.
I'm not comfortable with the price. I'm comfortable with the idea that we need this piece of equipment. But I don't know if there's any way that we could shop to see if we could get a better price on that.
What does this piece of equipment do again?
Basically monitors your drinking water.
I don't think I want to buy something off eBay that's going to monitor my drinking water.
It's straight from it's the same straight from the factory. It's the same.
I know, but the one that's for $5,000 or $7,000 is from you. What you said you looked it up.
But if it's the same thing, would it?
How do you know? It's not from the company. It's not guaranteed. It's not warranted. It's a HOG brand.
What's that?
It's a HOG, right?
Yeah,
You're talking about.
right.
He's talking about HOG.
I'm talking about a HOG 55 SC. If you pull it up, it looks like it sells for less money on other sales venues. That's why I was. Because I also pulled it up to see if it was sole source, and it looked like there's other companies that make it. Now, I grant you that may not fit into our system already, and I guess that's the issue. But that's a different issue. And I understand if it has to be this particular brand because that's what we have, I'm okay with that as a sole source, because that's been explained. But the price, I still looks steep to me just from the little bit of poking around online.
I didn't
And I didn't know where we got
the
that
price.
I
price.
just went on Hawk from their website, and it's 28,603. Right off of their website.
Off their website directly from the factory.
Directly from the factory,
Okay.
Hawk, 28,603. And it's not available on Amazon.
Mayor, I think you're looking at another analyzer. There's a 55 SC and a 5500.
Okay. So the 55 SC is a different.
Right.
Okay. Because it looks like the same piece of equipment that you had here when I looked it up.
They look similar.
Okay.
But they measure, the 55, for example, measures 1 parameter, this one measures 30.
I just wanted, thanks for the clarification. I just wanted to make sure that we're paying the right price for it too when I was looking.
And they're expensive.
I appreciate the clarification.
We can add the cart right now.
I need 3 votes.
Tom, add it to your part.
So
Hit the PayPal button.
with that, thanks for the clarification. I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the purchase of the Hawk 5500 SC for $28,603.
Before we head on, the general public want to speak on this item? Seeing no hands, let's put it to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move on to the fence code discussion, which I believe has been carried over a couple times now. And we're going to pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As directed by council, there are 2 possible ordinance amendments in the packet. Yeah, correct. The building official went through these and what you have highlighted in yellow is staff's proposal to clarify, clean up, and make it a little easier to manage. And so, obviously, if you want to change your code, you have a recommendation from staff on what we would like to see. But it's your code. Would request a motion to approve both amendments.
I have a question about the constructed with fencing material. You see now fences that are using like decorative type stuff. Would that be considered? Okay.
Give me a
No, like that, like.
Decorative aluminum.
Yeah, that's part of it. We show in there what materials can be used.
Right.
So aluminum, stuff like that, the vinyl, the wood dog ear panel, no chicken wire, stuff like that. But you got your, I think there's 5 or 6 of them in there, but
Yeah.
but yeah, the decorative fencing. and
You know,
stuff like
they have
that.
the 2x6s now, people are running horizontal.
Right,
and
you have the horizontals to where they're interweaved.
Yeah, but I don't see
Right.
it.
So,
I
yeah,
don't see
the
aluminum.
only problem
Well,
is
it's a-
aluminum
a
and
wood
iron.
part.
But
Aluminum's not in there.
No,
but
It says metal though, right?
no.
No, it's a
Decorative
Decorative
wrought iron.
iron.
Wrought iron. We can add that in there.
before we go any further, one of the things I'd like to do is get an explanation on what the code is now, what the changes are, kind of specifically, and why those changes from the city's perspective. I think those are the recommendations.
What code enforcement and I are running into with the fences is, you're getting some folks, we got one gentleman on Bay Boulevard built one out of pallets. I mean, technically it's a wood product, but it's not a fencing material, it's work. Pardon me.
Thank you.
To reiterate, code enforcement and the building department are running into different types of materials being used in the city that's not explained. One property in particular on Bay Boulevard is using pallets. I mean, he literally has pallets stacked up to make his 4-foot fence because he is on a waterway. Some of the other issues that we're having is chicken wire. We've run across chicken wire as fencing.
If I can interject here, the original code says such as, you're a lawyer. That means, okay, such as chain link or wrought iron, but could be almost anything. This one says shall be. So these are exactly the materials used.
So there's no interpretation there.
No well, it's
Right, and
found.
that was the intent, to take out okay, this would be what you guys are wanting to be seen in the city. Same thing goes for on your waterways where you have to drop to the 4-foot level. A lot of folks are putting up decorative panels, but they're not see-through. This way it breaks it down to where it's more like your picket type with a gap no bigger than 5 inches, no less than 4 inches. If you go bigger, if you go smaller, it kind of closes it up, so you really are obscuring the view. But 4 inches normal with what you would use typically on a railing for like a handrail. If you go bigger than 5, then a little kid can stick their head through it.
So you have 5 here, so that's
Yeah.
what you mean 5, right?
So that's why we kept it. We're trying to keep it within those parameters. That's a suggestion to you folks.
So, am I to assume we want to insert aluminum in there along with the other material?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Anybody else think about item material that's not here? We have chain link, wood, vinyl, decorative wrought iron, and now aluminum. That's all you can make a fence. That cover all the bases. Okay.
That's, I think there was a second change as well. Or was that the only change that was right?
Fencing of the only. Well, that's it. And this one.
We have a second one for, there's 2 separate pieces of code for you to consider. The other one's accessory structure.
Gotcha. So I thought there were 2 on the fence, so specifically, just one on the fence, okay.
Well, you've got, what you have is examples, Newport Richey, Pasco County,
Okay.
our current code, and then the proposed amendment.
Okay.
And the same with accessory uses and structure.
So, any need for any further discussion? Looking for a motion?
Motion to approve proposed ordinance, section 12790 as provided in the agenda with the addition of aluminum as an acceptable material.
This is going to impact all our residents, so anyone like to speak on? Welcome.
Oh, what?
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. Thank you, Mr. Colombo, for finding aluminum, because that was my issue. But it's not the only issue. I've noticed, and I don't know how this factors in, I've noticed that sometimes somebody will landscape in the front yard, and they'll use either a small wood bordering or maybe even a small metal fence, maybe 2 or 3 feet around their shrubs, to that effect. I don't know how that impacts this, if any at all. And I've been told, and this was a neighbor of mine that subsequently has passed away, he had a boat between the 2 houses. And I says, you're not allowed to keep that boat in there. And he says, well, it's a fence. So hopefully this is going to clarify that. One of the other situations, I know the cost or the path of least resistance and cost is typically a chain link fence, which I'd like to see that removed from here. But I understand that a lot of people have cost restrictions on some of that. Is there a way that we could get it so that it's the wire that's coated a black, because that becomes more opaque when you're looking? It's just a thought. Thank you.
Sherry Share, 7802 Davis Street. I just didn't know if there was any kind of a code. This is just, I have a chain link fence. It's been there for 20-odd years. I have vines growing on it, so it's not just a plain chain link fence. My neighbor put up a white PVC fence this far from my fence. So now in between, there's all these weeds. Is there any code where if you put up a fence next to a pre-existing fence, you should have it so far away so they can maintain their yard? my personal thing. Thanks.
Fences can be right on the property line, so I will research it and see if there is anything here. I don't recall seeing anything, since fences can fall right on the property line. So if you put your fence on the property line and somebody else puts on theirs, I don't really recall anything that goes in between there, but I will look into it for you.
Yeah, it just looks bad on my side because I get all the weeds in between the fences.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I'll look into it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Ms. Rogers, come on, and then Ms. Jeske.
Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. Do shrubberies or hedges fall into this height guideline, like the 4 feet for water view?
That would probably, this strictly.
This is strictly.
You mentioned something now that, not to answer that question, but yes, it does. Sure, answer your question. But I didn't know where this was going. And it's very hard to follow, not knowing what was taken out and what's going in. So you want to dictate, you'll notice Newport Richey and Pasco County does, you want to dictate what you have to make the fence out of, okay? So you know, that'll be a first, all right? Now, it says wood, so that's not going to solve your problem, right? So that could be what is.
A pellet, you're right.
Okay, so it's got to be made, and what would be the reasoning it's got to be made of that? Put it on the record.
Okay.
Somebody's going to challenge you on that. Chain link, wood, vinyl, or decorative wrought iron, and our purpose would be it being made of that stuff. Okay, now you could talk about designs and stuff, so that's what you're mandating, okay? And then you get into the spacing and things like that. Just so you understand, the other Newport Richey and Pasco County, what you're trying to do here is no fence shall, this is what it says in our code, no fence shall be erected higher than 4 feet of residential property along a canal or natural body of water. That's what we're talking about here, no place else. The limitation on the height of such fence shall apply to fences constructed along or from the waterfront property to the nearest building line. The next section addresses, I believe it's 3, this is section 2, about the bushes, I believe. It's not something we have.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, yes, it's section 3, I believe. I didn't know to talk about that, but I know that's what it is. And it talks about whether you can let the bushes grow and things like that. I probably have it here. And give me a second. He's from the fence. Hang on. Section 3. No, this is right after this section. No natural fences, plantings, shrubs, or hedges established after the effective date of the ordinance from which this chapter is derived, that means the date this was passed 20 years ago, shall be planted or maintained. That means if you've had them there before or future plantings, in lieu of what's written above, at a height greater than 4 feet along, 4 feet along and from the waterfront property line to the nearest building line in residential property. Okay, so that's what we have now. I'm going to have a little problem. You can't just do these in a vacuum, right? So what these 2 sections are doing is trying to regulate whether you can block a view. You're on the water, right? That's your conversation. And you want to resolve that by determining what kind of wood, what kind of metal, what kind of aluminum for that purpose. The purpose of this is so you can see through it. Okay? Now, you want to keep doing that or say you don't do that, but someone's going to say, look, I want to put up a gold fence, and you tell me why I can't. Okay, you're going to fight that challenge, because what are you doing here? So you got to read both of these and maybe get this little thought. I'm not saying you should do it, you shouldn't do it, but try to put on the record here why it's got to be made of those materials. You don't see anybody else doing that. I can appreciate your problem. You know, someone wants to put it up with that. You could make it so it's, you know, normal materials or sightly materials and things like that. But if you want to dictate what kind of materials you use, you got to have a purpose. The purpose of these two sections is visibility, okay? Not, and you could also regulate so it looks kind of nice, but you can't use old wood like that. But I think you got to really look at what you're taking out and put it in and put the whole thing here.
So the material would be for aesthetic purposes throughout the
I
city?
guess, yeah, but you know.
But you're right in the fact that the
It sounds like you're not solving the
wood.
problem, just,
Right.
and
Well, doesn't the viewable, the 3 inches by 5 inches of in between pickets solve the view?
that's fine, that's fine. Those are good things, that's fine. You'll see that's pretty much what they talk about in Newport Richey and Pasco County, the distance between them and stuff.
But you can talk about the distance between and not what type of material in there. I guess that's the point, because the type of material may be.
Or you could, you know, everybody knows what wrought iron is, and you could say such as this and put some details, you know, fine materials and not rough made wood, or you could get into that detail, but
You know, and the
it's a serious issue here, okay? This come up half a dozen times before, and we find over
It's
the
come
years.
up, yeah, before.
You're not just fencing that, you know, you're making a change here, not even seeing what you're removing and not having the full code in front of you. You might give this some
And-
thought.
And the other thing too, again, like you said, when it comes to shrubbery, okay, same thing, 4 feet high. And yeah, put some, put some viburnum in there, grow 4 feet high, and you ain't looking through that.
That's right. I've done that case that in code enforcement over on, contrary to popular opinion, the city limit on the east side is not down the middle of the street on Manatee Point. It's in the backyards of those property owners. And
The backyard.
they kind of think that you can't see, you know, those issues have gone before the judge.
Yeah, I have another question that goes with that. On yeah.
So could we get a copy in the agenda of the old code?
I think we had that last agenda.
We had that. Well, no, it wasn't in the last agenda, everything but.
Yeah,
that
it wasn't in the last agenda.
Oh, I thought we had all.
I didn't bring it.
Okay.
When you say present code, the old code.
I have a second question. They haven't let me get to it yet.
Well, all the other places in the code where the word fence appears was put in the last agenda, except the fence code. Okay, those are places, that email to Linda was, here's what you're looking for, and these are all the other places that I don't think is impertinent, but here they are, and they reverse that.
Okay. Can I go on to my second part now? That's okay. Well, on Sunset, you know, we've got the property, the road, and then the river. And do those 4-foot heights go for the, like in 10 or 15 feet from the road? Because I sit on my front porch and I watch the river. And there's one house, the people that did all this don't live there anymore, but they planted stuff that got very tall that ran right out to the edge of the road. So I was just wondering if that was part of the 4-foot requirements too, or because it's across the road, does it make a difference?
On Sunset and also on Grand Boulevard, you have the kind of situation where there's a road and a piece of property to varying degrees. A couple of them are pretty darn big. And those are not parcels but houses on them. So, you know, basically, what's the rules then?
Yeah. Well, in my case, it's not very much, but there are some places where it's more. But anyway, it's just, it's a rule.
Natural or man-made bodies of water, they're defined in the code. As a matter of fact, they
Yes.
might have given you some.
Well,
But I think the previous city attorney here is not a judge. He determined Lake Knox is not a natural body of water, and that became an issue then. I think I said something else, I looked it up, I have it with me, if you want to
I
read
was
it.
going to say, but the river is a natural body of water. Yeah.
There's, you know, natural body of water, things like that. And that's a certain discretion given to the building official. He's the one that has to deal with this. And so the fire can make it the easiest job begun. Some people complain to him all the time.
Yeah. Before I asked a new neighbor to cut the stuff back, I wanted to know where we stood.
Chuck Jasic, 5134 Miller Bayou Drive. Several of us have pools in our backyards, and the pool is not fenced in, so our yards are fenced in. So when you make these ordinances, you want to make sure that those requirements of 4 inches or whatever are within code for having a fenced or a yard fenced in pool. I believe there's, for a pool, you have to have pickets or whatever so close together. I'm not sure what it is. But I would want to make sure that whatever that distance is, I can maintain a fence, around my yard that still protects my pool. Right now, I do have a chain link fence around the yard, and it's not coated. And I'm not planning on coating it, so I don't know if that's a hindrance or not. But sometime, you got to replace that chain link fence with a new chain link fence. So, but my main concern is the spacing, making sure that I can still fence my yard in 4 feet high, be legal with a pool.
Thank you. Your Honor, the next section, any conflict between the provisions of this section and any laws, because there's a state statute on the swimming pool fences, pertaining to the erection of a fence around any swimming pool, the requirements for erection of a fence for a swimming pool shall prevail, except that such swimming pool fence erected on waterfront property shall be constructed so as not to obstruct vision from the waterfront property line to the nearest property line. So someone's going to have to comply. And if compliance with our statute conflicts with the state statute, which seems to change all the time, the state statute will prevail. You can't make someone not be in compliance with the state statute. On the fence ordinance here that affect each other. It can't be done in a vacuum, what you're doing.
All right, so if we can get a copy of that with the agenda, so that we can all look at it and have all this correct information.
We still have a motion and a second on the table. We have more from the general public that want to speak, so come on up. Welcome.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, we have a motion. Do we want to withdraw that motion?
You have to, you have a second for it.
My second, please. He motioned, my second.
It belongs to the table now, the motion is set. Okay. It's out here. If you want to pass another motion to terminate discussion on it and vote it down, you can do that, but it's on the table. Want to do that? You can just take it down, you can read it.
I mean, it doesn't sound to me like we're going to go ahead with the motion as it stands, so.
Okay, well,
What's the motion to?
okay, well, it's just, you can do it by consent, just take it down. It's gone. Okay, so then you can stop the input here and they can get input on the next motion, okay? Okay.
Because it looks like we want to do some more research before we do anything, so.
Agreed.
So motion and the second is,
Yes, you just voted strike.
Just strike it.
But you're comfortable with that?
You like these people speak.
Comfortable with
Yeah, I
that?
want everybody to
Okay.
have all the information appropriate to make these decisions.
Understood.
So, yes.
Hi, thanks. John Eric Hoover, 8703 Green Street. Just wanted to point out on here, when you guys do review this, with the 3 to 5 inches, kind of following on Chet's comment, I just did a quick search out on Lowe's, and I actually have this type of vinyl fence, so I wanted to bring it up. I don't know if it was researched on those tolerances, but a lot of this prefab stuff, and this particular one is 2 7/8 of an inch picket spacing. So whatever we decide on there, just if we could maybe get, I know there's different sizing of products out there, obviously, but 2 7/8 is really close to 3. We don't want to prevent that necessarily, I don't think, especially if it's a kind of like a standard, if you will. So I don't know if was any of that taken into consideration, or was just
What you're going through the center or from the.
it just says here 2 7/8 inch picket spacing. Now, I don't know if that's from center to center or if that's from actually in between the picket or not.
In between the pickets.
Probably, yeah.
We're going from center to center.
I don't think it's. It says that with spacing between the pickets of a minimum 3 inches. So it says it.
Right, so if you have a 4 inch, if you have set on 4.
Well, the picket has an inherent width.
Spacing between the pickets.
Right.
Minimum of 3 inches.
So when you go center to center on the pickets, it gives you a 3 inch. Yeah, between the pickets.
Well, if the pickets are exactly spaced 3 inches, it's going to be less than 3 inches space. Okay, this I just when you yeah. Thank you.
And I'd like to also do that the same with the shed. I'd like to put that until we get the existing code like we're doing for the fence for the next meeting.
What I'd like to do, if I can, is can we just take a 5-minute break, because we've been kind of going at it for a while?
Yeah.
I know that.
We're done at this point. If we do what she said, we're done.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can adjourn.
We can adjourn and then take a break.
Yeah, that was the end of the agenda. I move to adjourn.
No, we had one more item in old business.
Oh.
You want to strike that item?
All right, forget it.
We're moving the fence to a future agenda.
Right.
And I
We move the
look for
MPO to
consensus
first.
to move the shed structure along with it.
Yes.
By consensus, are we okay with that?
Consensus, let's push them both.
Okay. And I presume that our old business has been covered mostly in new business, because I see it the same?
Yep.
So
Yes.
looking for a motion.
Motion adjourned.
I did that already.
All in favor?
People are mean to me.
Yeah, a motion adjourned is not debatable. That's just happened.